welcome to this episode of CareerCast, brought to you by Personal Career Management. And again, I have members of our team together with us to talk about the subject of the day, which is going to be LinkedIn. So welcome to Colin Lloyd, Joe Thurman, and Jane Garrard.
Morning.
So LinkedIn. Now, quite often people are a little bit reluctant to go on LinkedIn. And I remember talking to people before and saying, well, social media, I try to keep away from it. But why should you do it? Or should you do it even? What's the purpose of it? So, Joe, if I can come to you and say, why bother with LinkedIn?
It's got lots of value for the individual and for talent professionals. So it adds additional information to your CV. So it gives a rounder picture to the CV that you've got. It's fuller, it has a picture, you can have more content, it's searchable. So that's how it might help talent professionals. But for you as an individual, it can raise your profile and you can connect with people. You can learn from it. You can do research on it. It's a huge subject. There's lots and lots of reasons for having it. Really, one thing I would say, though, is try and disassociate it with the word social media. So you will see some frivolous content on there, but in theory, LinkedIn is all about your professional identity, not friends and family, and it shouldn't be social media.
Thank you. So, Colin, if we're talking about what should be on your profile and what content should be on there, what's your recommendation?
LinkedIn is very good at letting you know what content to put in. That when you start, if you're a complete novice and you've not used it before, and you start building your own profile, you get hints from LinkedIn about what to put in and where to put it. And the more full your profile is, obviously, the better that is. The thing that you need to be careful of is that it's reasonably accurate, because if you're in a job search, you will be sending your CVs out, and when you send your CV out, you will tailor that to the individual jobs. LinkedIn's more your shop window. Just make sure it doesn't jar or contradict your CV, i.e. the main dates are the same, job titles are roughly the same. Otherwise, people get suspicious if there's a massive difference between your CV and your profile. But as you build your profile, you'll get prompts from LinkedIn as to what to put in. It's better to put as much information as you can in on your profile, because the way recruiters use it, there's more chance of you coming up in one of those searches.
Right. So I think that's a really important point about the being accurate, because I've seen lots of CVs before, and you do naturally go and have a look at people's LinkedIn profiles as well, and then you see inconsistencies in the two, and those people are going to get rejected straight away. Jane, what are some of the kind of pitfalls or mistakes that people make on their LinkedIn profile particularly?
So I think sometimes having a photograph is a must-have, because recruiters will look at you more if there is a photo. But important to have a very appropriate professional image of you in work mode. It doesn't have to be suited and booted, but if you can take a photograph or have someone take a photograph that is, here I am in my workplace, this is what I look like, you've got a smile on your face, something that kind of doesn't just show what you look like, but if you can, with the facial expression, say something about your personality as well, I think that can be really helpful. So, make sure it is a really appropriate photo, because I think there are lots which are inappropriate. So there's one where you see somebody's hand, it's been somebody at a wedding and they've got somebody's hand on their shoulder, something like that, or it's an inappropriate holiday photo of a cocktail on the beach,
I think we've all seen those, haven't we? There's a lot of people at weddings, there's a lot of people on holiday wearing tuxedos, they're on a night out, they're all glammed up, but as you say, not overly appropriate for work. So kind of thinking about some of the features of LinkedIn, and if you're looking for a new job, what are some of the features that you can really use to help you? And if I can come to Joe for that.
One section that is often underutilised is the bit immediately under your name, which is called headline. If you edit your LinkedIn profile, they call that space headline. It defaults to your current job title and your current company or most recent. But headline means it's a positioning statement. It's like a summary. It's like, if you imagine it as your business card. So what you're called and where you work may not help anybody find you for what you want to do, because your internal title may mean nothing to the external market. And also the search is clever, but it's not so clever that it can identify what your company does in an industry. So one trick is really to maximize the value of the headline. And the great thing about LinkedIn is you can look at everybody else's. Yeah. So if you've got an idea of what you think you want to be called or what you think your aspirational job is, browse other profiles and see who's doing it well. But for example, your headline could be something about senior operations manager. You might not be called that, but you might say healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So you're helping somebody get you really early on, and then the rest of your profile backs that up.
That's a really helpful bit of advice, because again, as you say, that positioning statement, making sure that you're easily searchable by recruiters who might be looking. Colin, what about connections? You know, LinkedIn is a connecting tool, and why should you bother, and how can you best use that?
I mean, LinkedIn's original, if you like, raison d'etre is it's a professional network, which is online. So basically, as much as you would network in a non-digital way to find a job, then LinkedIn is obviously a great way to do that. But why would you do it? You can make more connections. You can find out more about the type of industry that you want to work in, find out, as Joe said, about people that work there, and try and make connections with them. You should connect with people that are relevant, and don't feel bad about turning connections down. A lot of the times you'll get a connection request from somebody, and then the minute you accept it, 30 seconds later, they're trying to sell you something. So if you can't see the value of accepting a connection, you don't have to accept it. And equally, when you're making connections, think about, why would that individual want to connect with you? You have to give them a reason rather than just going, let's connect. One of the things that you see, which is, it's not annoying, I guess, but I would almost go as far as to say lazy, where people just use the default connection that LinkedIn produces. My advice would be, always go a little bit further, put a comment in, it's much more likely to be accepted, and give the reason why you want to connect with the individual. Might simply be, you work in a field that I'm trying to research, any chance that we could make a connection so I can learn a little bit more. But give them the reason. Generally speaking, similar to face-to-face networking, if you give a good enough reason, you can start a dialogue. So yeah, connections, just edit them and be wary about the relevance of who you connect with, is what I would say.
Thank you. And Jane, if we're thinking about those kind of connections, you know, in order to find a new job, how would you, because LinkedIn does advertise jobs, it will suggest jobs for you. Are there any tips that you have for how you can optimize your use of the jobs function?
I think the jobs function can sometimes pull up, you're right, roles that perhaps don't feel appropriate. I think there are other ways to use LinkedIn as well, that you're not necessarily using that job function directly. So I had a conversation with someone this morning where a couple of weeks ago we'd been looking at what they're doing on LinkedIn, one of my clients, and he was a bit disappointed that, you know, there wasn't much coming through in terms of communication from recruiters or connections. And we looked a couple of weeks ago at the people that had been viewing his profile. So he'd chosen to have a premium membership. And this morning he told me about one of the headhunters who had viewed his profile previously but not proactively contacted him. So my client went back to that headhunter, said, I've noticed that you landed on my profile. Looks like we work in the same space. Can we have a discussion? He now has an interview via that headhunter. So just by there's the job search tool, which is absolutely there and valuable, but having an eye on who's been viewing your profile can be more fruitful sometimes. It's much more targeted.
So, which kind of brings us on to that question of, is it worth upgrading? Because LinkedIn has got some other kind of functionalities which you have to pay for. They're more premium services rather than the basic one. But, would you recommend those? Jo, if I can come to you, do you think those are worth it?
Quick answer is, I think I'd experiment and try and see if there's a difference. So they offer normally a 1 month free trial as an inducement to get you into the system. You do need to diarise to cancel the free trial, otherwise it automatically rolls. So give it a go. So have a go without it, have a go with it, and see if it brings you any additional value. There are job seeker tools as well as premium, lots of different variations. I'd ask other people who are job seeking and ask them if there is any perceivable difference in the outcomes they're getting, the level of visibility they're getting, the quality of the connections they're getting by paying that premium. You can always turn it back off again if you did pay for the premium for a couple of months and you didn't think you were going to get a benefit. I certainly wouldn't aim to just leave it there all the time.
Yeah, but Jo, in your view, kind of working with clients, is this something that you would recommend?
They always ask me that, and I always say, okay, my quick answer is I don't pay for premium.
So you don't yourself? I don't myself either.
I'm not job seeking, but I don't pay for the premium.
Okay. How about you, Colin? What would you recommend upgrading, and if so, in what circumstances?
I think if you're quite into your job search and it's been a while since you've been working, then it doesn't do any harm to take one of the cheaper packages. And as Jo said, try it, see what happens. When I was a recruiter, I had the most expensive package because some recruiters don't necessarily bother with their own databases anymore. They will spend most of their working life on LinkedIn looking for people. So it's the place to hang out if you're looking for a job for recruiters, if you want to be found by recruiters. I think the way that LinkedIn's going, more and more of the services which are available now will only be available by subscription. So I think that will migrate towards that. And I'd still kind of sit on the fence with Jo a little bit and say it depends. But certainly for the more senior job seeker who's finding it a little bit difficult to connect with the right people, then certainly a couple of months with a paid subscription can't do any harm.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Jane, you were nodding on that.
Yeah, I would recommend it as a really helpful part of job search, the premium membership, because what we know is that a really high proportion of jobs are filled through the unadvertised market. So 70% of jobs are filled through the unadvertised market. And what the premium membership allows you to do is use the in-mail function so that you can contact people directly who aren't necessarily in your network. But it also allows you to do the viewing of who has looked at your profile, which again allows you to add people to your network. And I think what can sometimes be putting a little bit with LinkedIn is the number of applications that you can see. I talked to somebody last night who was putting in an application with the NHS, interestingly, and there were 200 applications already, and it had been there for a couple of days. So he was still going to reply, but it does mean in those applications you're in that really tight competitive process. So work with your network, and who knows what fruit that might bring.
Thank you. So what's our kind of general advice about how to get the best out of LinkedIn? And Jo, kind of your top tips.
I think picking up on what Colin said earlier, have as full a profile as you can. So yes, the photo, think about the headline, use the summary section. Make sure you've got your skills section mapped out. reach out and get recommendations. So that full profile is going to really serve you in good stead. I'd also say it's a fantastic research tool if you're exploring options, because you can see the profiles of people who may be doing the thing you might be considering doing or working in the space. And there's loads of content that you can follow and groups you can be part of that could help you get better clarity on that ahead of an interview or ahead of a speculative application.
Fantastic. I'm always surprised at how few people check out their prospective interview panel before they go for an interview. It's like, go onto LinkedIn and see who you're going to be dealing with. Colin, what about you? Kind of final thoughts and advice on how to get the best out of LinkedIn?
I think it's predominantly a business networking vehicle. You wouldn't go to a face-to-face networking event and just stand in the corner and watch what was going on. You'd get involved, and that's exactly what you should be doing on LinkedIn. If you're in job search mode, there will be comments, there will be news items about your chosen field where your voice is as relevant as anyone else's. Doesn't make any difference that you're not currently working in it. And if you contribute to that and seem to make positive engagements, it can only help with your number of connections. And as Jane said before, connections lead to introductions. Introductions may lead to a recommendation about a job that's not been advertised. So it's kind of following the trail of crumbs to what you eventually want, which is a job. But you're not going to get that if you just have a really nice profile and don't do anything else.
Right. So it's not a static thing. You've got to kind of engage. It's got to be dynamic. You've got to be heard. You've got to contribute. And it is two-way, isn't it? Because I guess if you're spouting all the time and posting, but you're not kind of also, supporting other people on that and having a dialogue rather than a one-way transmit, it's not going to be as effective. Thank you. Jane, kind of thoughts about how to get the best out of it?
I think picking up on something that Colin said earlier about being interested in others that you are connecting with. So asking them a question, letting them hear your energy about why you want to connect with them. But the other one is being very helpful and generous to your connections. So I saw a really nice example of this on LinkedIn this morning, where one of my connections was saying to her contacts, given the current crisis that we're in with the pandemic, if you're on furlough and worried, if you've been made redundant, let me know if I can help you. Can I write you a recommendation? Can I put you in touch with somebody? Can I put in a good word for somebody? So offering something to your connections will be really helpful over time.
To a kind of sense of community, that kind of gesture, also kind of your personal PR. Well, listen, thank you very much. Very helpful. And we wish everyone every success with their LinkedIn profile updating this week. Goodbye from us.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Bye.